All right. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Intro to Reclaim webinar. We're going to be taking a look at an overview of the app, the features, how you can automate your schedule using Reclaim, and some of the benefits that you can get out of it. We have a Q&A section, so leave questions there as I go throughout the webinar. I'll go through and answer them, but let me share my screen and we can dive right in. Okay, first things first, what is Reclaim? Reclaim is a smart scheduling app for Google Calendar that allows you to automate the time blocking process so you can defend time on the calendar for all of your priorities, whether that's task work, meetings, regular routines, whether those are work or personal routines, as well as all of your personal commitments across other calendars. If you've ever tried to manually time block your calendar, time blocking is a great way to maximize your productivity by making sure that your limited time every week is dedicated towards your priorities. And so you have a great plan going into the day. But when you are manually time blocking your calendar, it can very quickly become a tedious task, especially when something changes. You can build out your perfect weekly plan, something new comes up, something gets canceled, and you have to manually go in and reschedule and shuffle everything around, which isn't exactly time efficient. So Reclaim automates this entire process and optimizes it so you tell Reclaim what your priorities are, and Reclaim does all of the work of scheduling on your calendar, but also keeping it flexible and adaptive for those changes. So when they do come up, Reclaim automatically reschedules your calendar around your new priorities. Reclaim is a web app, so we're going to log in here, and whether you're a new user or you've been playing around with Reclaim on your own a little bit, hopefully this will be helpful in giving you an idea of how Reclaim works. So the first view that you open up to is the planner, which quite obviously is your calendar view of the week ahead. Obviously, you can look through upcoming weeks and essentially have an overview of your schedule. In the sidebar, you have sort of a list overview of habits and tasks that are upcoming. All of your events on the calendar are clickable to pull up details. And this is sort of where everything lives. This is both your event Reclaim created events as well as your Gmail or Google Calendar created events, excuse me. In this left-hand sidebar is where all of the features live. And we're going to walk through each of these, starting with habits, which is our most popular feature. And if you've already onboarded, you've probably set a couple of these up. But habits are a great way to make time for those recurring routines that you need to get on your calendar. And this could be work routines like updating reports or defending time for focused work every week, as well as your personal routines like exercising or spending time with family. They often say, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get done. And habits, especially when they're recurring habits, especially if they're on sort of a longer form timeline, they can very quickly slip through the cracks if they're not actually on your calendar. And Reclaim allows you to create these habits with rules that Reclaim follows to schedule them on your calendar according to your preferences and make sure that they don't slip through the cracks. So all of your habits live in this tab here. As you can see, you have your two categories for habits, priority habits and low priority habits. What this means is that they prioritize either before or after tasks, which we'll go over next. But these are stack rankable, so you can drag and drop them to tell Reclaim which ones are more important. And then we have over 100 templates by department that you can browse to see what other busy professionals are defending time for. These are sort of templates that are already pre-built around these routines, which you can customize to fit your unique preferences. You can also create a new habit from scratch for this button here. I'm actually going to work off a template today. Let's say we're going to do a habit for retrospective planning. And again, these forms are something that you're going to see as we walk through the app. And this is what makes Reclaim really different from other scheduling tools, and especially manually time blocking your calendar. By giving Reclaim sort of a range of limitations and rules and preferences in these forms that will look similar throughout the app, you allow Reclaim to create a more flexible way of scheduling your calendar. So instead of saying that you want to do something, creating a recurring habit in Google Calendar, for example, at 12 p.m. every single day, which doesn't allow for much flexibility if something more important comes up at 12 p.m., Reclaim has these sort of guidelines for when and how you want to make time for this routine, and allows it to prioritize other things if they do come up around your preferences. So this is already auto-filled. The title is obviously how it will appear on your calendar. You can choose an emoji. You can obviously customize all of these. And then here you have these scheduling rules that I've sort of mentioned already. The duration, obviously, is how long you want to spend on the habit. And these are customizable. You could make this 30 minutes to however many hours you wanted to spend on something. And again, you're giving Reclaim this range to work with. So at a minimum, say I want to spend an hour on my retrospective planning, and at maximum 2 hours at a time working on it. Then you can select your hours. That is when you want it to schedule. We have our default working, meeting, and personal hours that you can choose. You can also, on paid plans, build out custom hours where you can sort of build out additional templates that you can choose from. You can also choose one-off hours where you can customize it to that specific habit instance. So I'm going to pick working hours because this is a work habit for me, and that will schedule around my set working hours. The frequency, again, having that customizable setting here to do it. If it's every day, a weekly habit, or something that might be quarterly, you can set that here. Picking an ideal day and time. This is sort of, again, a guideline for if that time is available, Reclaim will choose that as your preferred time. I'll just leave that for what it is now. And then starting, you can also set a habit to start at some time in the future. I'm going to leave it as soon as possible to get that scheduled in the calendar. Now, you also have a notes field, which is especially great for adding things like links to reports or notes sheets or any additional resources that you might need. And Reclaim will include that in the actual event detail so that you can pull anything up that you need without having to go looking for it. Visibility, this again gives you a little bit more control over how events appear on your calendar. Reclaim gives you a lot of privacy options for that. In this example, I could mark it as just busy, so it shows as a busy time block without any additional details. I will leave it as open with the description because I'm happy for my team to know what I'm busy with, creating that transparency. And then you have your time defense settings, which is sort of a scale additionally to tell Reclaim how aggressively you want to defend that time on your calendar. And on a spectrum, you can mark it as always busy, where Reclaim will automatically lock it down and prioritize it over anything else. And then on the other end of the spectrum is always free, where it's nice to do if you have the time, if you have the availability. Reclaim will schedule this, but it will treat it as the lowest priority routine for you. I'm going to leave it as more defensive, which is sort of the in-between, where Reclaim will automatically secure that time down as my calendar books up or as the time for that habit to start draws near. And this introduces another interesting core concept of Reclaim that we'll look at next here. And then you can add additional details like CCing others for collaborative events, or adding additional words or phrases for Reclaim to scan your calendar for. In this case, that might not be as relevant, but for example, if you have a lunch habit, you could put in restaurant or lunch meeting or something like that. And if that event shows up on your calendar, Reclaim will scan for it and won't schedule a duplicate lunch habit. And then you can auto decline interruptions for your most important habits in that sense, which I'll do for this because it's an important habit for me. I'm going to hit save, and Reclaim is going to start looking through my calendar to start accommodating scheduling this routine around the preferences that I've set. And here we can see what upcoming events I have already scheduled for it. If we go back to the planner, I want to touch on this free busy concept that I had mentioned. So if you look at the planner view, you'll notice that you have some event blocks that have a dashed outline and some that have a solid time block. This is a great visual representation of how Reclaim uses free and busy controls to keep your calendar flexible while also defending time for your priorities. Now, Reclaim will take all of the priorities that you give it between habits, tasks, meetings, and defend that time loosely on your calendar initially as sort of like a reservation for when you want to accomplish that around the preferences that you've set. As the time draws near, depending on your defense settings that you've set, Reclaim will automatically lock it down so it doesn't move. If you run out of opportunities to reschedule it. You can also, of course, manually lock something on the calendar so that it stays where it is. But Reclaim keeps this as sort of a flexible opportunity for something more important to come up. Your solid time blocks are once that time has been actually secured, that is marked as busy, and that time is defended on your calendar and won't be moved or rescheduled for that flexibility. This is a great way to visually see it, where you have sort of reserved spaces for certain things, and then your lockdown routine for everything that's already been secured. And this is obviously a very busy calendar, so that's there's not a lot of room for rescheduling anyway, so it's pretty blocked up here. And if we go to October 18th, I believe that was the first time we scheduled retrospective planning. Maybe not. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we just created this habit and it is scheduled on the calendar around the preferences that we've already set. And we have that scheduled as the first event, the first availability on the 18th. And we'll have all of the details here with upcoming events and additional details as well. Now, Reclaim builds out your perfect daily plan around all of your preferences. Once you've built out all your habits, once you put in your tasks, Reclaim does, it's best to create that prioritized system for all of the things that you've said you needed to get done. But you're always in control of being able to reschedule things as they come. So let's say retrospective planning was scheduled for October 18th. Let's say I had some time right now to actually take care of some of that. I can manually go in and start a habit or task that's not currently scheduled, and Reclaim will automatically go back to this week, move that event to start right now and start tracking that time and accommodate the rest of your schedule to match that new priority change. Additionally, you can drag and drop events to change. Let me find an actual Reclaim one here. Let's say lunch. I'm not gonna be able to do it then. I'll do it at 2 instead. Essentially, you're always in control. And I've been working in the planner view here, but everything that you do in Reclaim also reflects in Google Calendar. It is a bi-directional tool for Google Calendar. So everything that you see in the planner view is also the same that you see in the Google Calendar view, for example. And here's that link that I added in the Notes app. So you're always in control here. And the thing with Reclaim is that it's not meant to replace the tools that you're already using. It's supposed to integrate with sort of the workflow that you already have. So if you like the planner view, you can totally work in there. You can also, if you have already been more experienced and comfortable with Google Calendar, you can manage all of your events from right here without leaving Google Calendar. Once you have everything set up, we have an add-on that's free for users to install. And once that's installed, you have a little button here on the side. We have a very similar view to that in the planner to start and stop tasks and habits and see all of your overview and manage everything here as well. Let me quickly check if we have any questions while we're here. All right. So that's a habits or a rundown of habits. Now, tasks, on the other hand, where habits are great for sort of those recurring routines that you want to make time for, tasks are great for your, ever-changing priorities, your to-do list, your projects, and work like that. So your tasks live in the task tab, a similar view to your habits. You can stack rank your tasks to tell Reclaim which ones are your higher priority tasks. You can prioritize them by due date in a single click, and your tasks are categorized into these 4 categories: open, scheduled, done scheduling, and marked done. Now, creating a new task is super simple. You can hit that button from anywhere in the app at the top here, or there's a keyboard shortcut to hit C, and that will open up the task drafter as well. And this one's a little bit shorter, but very similar to the way that we built out our habit. Tasks are very similar in that giving Reclaim those flexible rules to work around. So let's say we have a very important task to finish. Give it a name. This is how it's going to appear on your calendar. Add your duration for how long you need to work on it. You have the option to split it up. This is great if you have a very busy calendar, or if it's a task that might be, a longer task, 7 hours, say. Reclaim will split it up before the due date around everything else that you have going on. You have a minimum and maximum duration. So the minimum amount of time that you want to work on that task at a time, and the maximum. So we'll leave it as 30 minutes and 2 hours as my defaults here. The hours that I want to schedule it in, again, the same as we saw in the habits. I'll start it right now. And then you add your deadline, which is great I'm going to set this out a little bit so that we can actually see it. Let's say November 10th. And Reclaim will work around everything else that you have in your calendar, those priorities, and find time on your calendar to work on this task before its due date. So I'm going to hit create, and Reclaim is going to start finding time to work on it. And here we can see we have it scheduled for October 4th. That's the next time. You have your task details here with your upcoming events. Again, you can start and stop tasks. You can always edit them later. And then this is obviously an open task because I have not marked it as done. Now, this task is also currently scheduled on my calendar, which is what the scheduled task category is. All of these tasks actively have events scheduled on the calendar. And then obviously your marked done tasks are all the tasks that you have marked as complete. Now, done scheduling is a neat little section here, a nice category where Reclaim, once it's burnt through the time that you said you needed for a task, it will move into this done scheduling state where it's still open because you haven't marked it as done. And it's a great checkpoint to sort of go back and see, like, did I actually get this done? Do I need to add more time on the calendar for this task? Or is it actually completed and I can mark it as done? Obviously, time blocking is great, but sometimes you might be in the mode and burn through a time block that you didn't work on something, or you might need to revisit something down the line. Again, you're always in control of your schedule in that sense. So tasks, very similar to habits, the same sort of controls that you have in the planner to work on those and to adjust how they schedule. That's sort of a great way to manage your own priorities, your tasks, your habits, all the things that are independently important to you. But Reclaim also has very powerful collaborative features for meetings. The first one that we released was Smart One-on-Ones, which is incredible for especially managers who juggle a lot of one-on-one meetings. Again, in the effort to optimize your scheduling and to take that off your plate by finding the time for you on your calendar, Smart One-on-Ones actually do this across both people's busy calendars. So if you're already managing one-on-ones in your weekly responsibilities, it's all too common for them to get canceled, for someone to ask to reschedule, and you end up having this time sink around just getting it on the calendar, let alone, making it a productive meeting. And Reclaim automates this whole process. You send a one-time invitation. Let's look at the form here. It doesn't have to be with a Reclaim user either, which is great. You send a one-time email invitation for them to set up their availability, and then Reclaim finds time across both people's busy calendars to get that meeting booked on a recurring basis. So email invitation, again, a very similar form that we've already seen throughout, a title for your meeting, a description with a link to agendas or notes or anything like that. Here you have your scheduling rules that are now becoming a little bit more common here, with your duration and frequency of the meeting. You have your hours as well as your attendees' hours, your ideal day and time when you want it to start, adding video conferencing or a physical location, and a note for your invitation. So if we actually look at one that's already scheduled here, we'll have a little bit more of a detail where you can add additional selections for your hours and your attendees' hours, and have it all set up where it's scheduled automatically on the frequency and duration that you need to meet with that person automatically. The great thing too is that one-on-ones, Smart One-on-Ones, can be rescheduled or skipped by both the organizer and attendee from their calendars without having to reach out manually and message someone about rescheduling. So if I find a one-on-one on the calendar here, here we go. Got Patrick and Kathy. Let's say I can't make that day. I know that I have something else coming up. I can hit reschedule for another week, and Reclaim will automatically find the next best time across both people's calendars to meet instead, and then accommodate the rest of your calendar around that available time then as well. All right, let me check questions real quick. So that's Smart One-on-Ones, excuse me. Scheduling links, on the other hand, which is our one of our newest features, addressed sort of the booking meeting link dilemma that we really discovered from our users, where there was, we have these meeting link options, these tools that already exist, but there was a big hole where certain features didn't exist and there wasn't capability for. So Reclaim created scheduling links, which again, function in a similar way where you can send someone a booking page to schedule time on your calendar with you. But Reclaim scheduling links offer two very powerful features that stand out from other tools on the market. And that is flexible durations and high priority links. So if I take a look at our meeting here, with Reclaim scheduling links, you can add up to 3 different durations to a single meeting link that allows the invitee to choose how much time they need with you and when they can get on your calendar. Obviously, 45 minutes might be a lot rarer to find on a busy person's calendar, but maybe I'd be happy to do a 15-minute meeting if I could get in sooner. And it just allows you, again, to optimize that scheduling process for both people and give a little bit more control to the invitee for a little bit more etiquette as opposed to sending a link. It's, having to choose how much time they want to spend with you. And then here's the additional feature of a high priority versus a normal priority link. This is especially great because we found that, in many cases, there will be meetings that you'd be happy to push everything aside to accommodate, whether that's an important sales meeting or a customer meeting. And instead of having to manually go in and clear events on your calendar to create that availability before sending a link, you can automatically mark a scheduling link as a high priority link, and it will show your tasks, habits, and smart one-on-ones as available times to the invitee so that they can book over it, and then Reclaim will automatically adapt your calendar if they do. Normal priority links, on the other hand, excuse me, are functioning as other booking links do, where they actually just look for available times on your calendar as they exist. So again, giving a little bit more control there. If we look at a booking page, this is what they look like. If you wanted to send someone a booking page for them to select a meeting with you, you could also share specific scheduling links where, you could send someone to a specific link versus sending them to your booking page. You can create link groups for different categories of links to send. You can create custom one-off links that expire after 30 days. We also have embed capabilities for scheduling links so that you can include it on your website. Just a lot of control there. We also have team links where you can add additional organizers to group meetings to schedule time across multiple busy calendars, as well as hidden links for those additional ones that you might not want on your booking pages. Okay, good question. Okay, we got a question. What if I have more than 2 calendars to sync? And this is a great time to hop into calendar sync, which is another very powerful feature of Reclaim. If you have more than 2 calendars to sync, you can sync more than 2 calendars. You can sync as many calendars as you want. Reclaim's calendar sync allows you to copy events to a primary calendar so that you can better manage your time, your actual availability across multiple calendars. We have lots of users who juggle multiple busy schedules across different calendars, whether that's for different clients or different side gigs. And Calendar Sync allows you to actually see all of your events across different calendars on one schedule. Obviously, you can have 10 different calendars, but you still only have the same amount of time in a day. And this allows you to more visibly and more accurately manage your time instead of jumping around from calendar to calendar. So Calendar Sync is a super easy way to set that up. You can add a new sync. The one thing with Calendar Sync is that it is one way. So if you wanted to schedule both ways, you'd have to set up 2 different syncs back and forth between those calendars. We have a huge collection of help docs on Calendar Sync to get that set up for people who have more complicated calendars like consultants. But Calendar Sync is a great way to manage multiple schedules. We also have connected calendars, which functions a little bit differently than Calendar Sync. Instead of actually copying those events to a primary calendar, you can add connected calendars, which Reclaim will reference availability across without actually copying those events to a primary calendar. So Reclaim, will check your availability across different calendars and not schedule your tasks, habits, or smart one-on-ones during that time. But if someone viewed your calendar, it would still show as open. So a little bit of flexibility there. Let's take a look at, our settings here. Oh, we've got another question, task question. Is there a way to add information on how long a task or project actually took versus how long we estimated it would take? Yes, so if you saw in tasks here, you can always add more time to a task. Additionally, so if you had a task, for example, that was done scheduling, say you said you needed 2 hours and it ran through those 2 hours and you actually need more time, you can add more time to the calendar and Reclaim will automatically track that as well to put it back on the calendar. You can also log time on tasks. Sorry, I have this Zoom window here where, say, if you worked on a task without it being on your calendar, or if you spend a little bit more time on it than you had scheduled, you can always log work where you can manually enter additional time that you spent working on that task for a more accurate tracking, even if it was a different day or time. In terms of a time frame suggestion, no, but that's a very great idea. And that's something that has come up as well in terms of sort of having that intelligent flexibility there. We do have defaults for tasks. So if you didn't want to manually enter details for a task, if it's something quick, we can set those up in our general settings for your task defaults. And then when you hit C to pull up and create a new task, Reclaim will sort of auto-populate these fields around sort of those quick tasks. It's, a 1 hour task to just get it on the calendar. And then you can always add more time to it later, which just makes that flow a little bit easier. So these are our settings here too, where you have your default task settings. We have buffer times and breaks in here as well. Obviously, maximizing productivity means getting your tasks and habits on the calendar, but it's also important to protect your breaks and time to decompress after meetings. So you can add breaks to schedule after tasks and habits, travel time around events, as well as decompression time after meetings, whether those are video conferencing meetings or all meetings that you have. And schedule that break on your calendar automatically as well. Let me see. We've got a few minutes left. If you have any other questions that have not been answered, drop them in the Q&A section as well. Another thing that I didn't mention here is that obviously you have your tasks where you can manually init your tasks, but we also have task integrations, native integrations with project management apps that you might already be using to bridge that gap between your to-do list and tasks even better. So say your team works on ClickUp, when a task gets assigned to you, you can set up a ClickUp integration so that your ClickUp items automatically get scheduled as tasks to your calendar. All of the integrations work a little bit differently, but they live in your settings under integrations. And there's plenty of documentation on getting those set up. We have integrations with Todoist, Linear, Jira, Asana, ClickUp, as well as Google Tasks. And we have the add-on, which we mentioned. Your hours also live under your settings, which we kind of mentioned throughout for scheduling ranges. You can set these to whatever custom preferences you had and build those out here. As well as your colors, where you can color code your calendar automatically. Another great thing about automating your time blocking, you don't have to manually go in and color code everything. Reclaim will intelligently identify what kind of category these events fall into and colorize your calendar automatically around those preferences and settings. We also have stats, which is a newer feature around your team stats, which are averaged across everyone, and your personal stats, so that you can track what you've been focused on over the weeks, over different time frames, how much time you spent in meetings, how much time you spent on deep or shallow work, as well as work-life balance stats around your calendar and how you had it scheduled, so you can better plan for future weeks around your priorities. Excuse me. So we also, as I mentioned, have a help center, which I will have linked as well. Is there a way to change the titles under the category? If you're talking about the category colors, no, those are just the color or categories that we have set for the different sort of groups of events. These don't show up on your calendar, the titles that is, it's just sort of the different kinds of events that will be color coded in that color. You can also just color code Reclaim events or all events in your calendar. So that is a preference you can set as well. In the Help Center, we have lots of information. Oh, I see your question on the Outlook calendar settings as well. Reclaim is currently only fully supportive of Google Calendar. There is a way to sort of do a loop around to sync Outlook calendars that is in the Help Center. But currently Reclaim only fully supports Google Calendar, which we're hoping to expand soon for more users. We have a YouTube channel with tons of video references to help you learn how to use these features, a lot of what we covered here today, as well as a setup guide in our app, which is right up here next to the new task button. That really walks through the onboarding process, all of the features, so that you can learn more about how to use Reclaim, how to set up your calendar for success. And so you can make the most out of all of the features. So that's a great place to start too. That's available on all accounts. All right, we are at time. I'm going to give it one more question if anyone else has any questions they want to drop in before we break here. But thank you so much for joining. I hope this was helpful in giving an overview of Reclaim and some of the things that you can do with Reclaim's smart time blocking features. Thank you so much for joining us. We have webinars every week, and this will be live on or streamed on YouTube if you wanted to rewatch anything. But thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Elizabeth. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. I'll stick around for another minute to see if there's any other questions, but otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend ahead. Thanks, Danielle. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend ahead. We'll